Let's talk about the offensive elephant in the room.
You are Locked On Clemson, your daily podcast on the Clemson Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Tiger fans? Morgan Thomas here, Clemson fan, Clemson grad, host and producer of Locked On Clemson, part-time host and producer over on 105.5 FM The Roar. Thank you so much for making Locked On Clemson your first listen of the day. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the number one sports podcast network out there, and that is largely due to you, the everydayers who stick with us Monday through Friday. And on this show, of a Friday show, you're still with us, so we really appreciate it. Sticking with us. And if you haven't already, make sure you hit that follow, hit that subscribe so you never miss another episode. And in between episodes, you can always follow me over on X at the Morgan T Show. You know, I was sitting at home and I was watching the Oregon and Indiana game and really kind of trying to get into it, but started to realize that Indiana was taking it away and just kind of letting it get out of hand because they have a very accurate quarterback and a very strong defense and a coach that everybody loves right now. And, the more I got into it, I was like, man, this game is putting me to sleep because they're just so much better than Oregon. And Oregon just seems lost. And maybe Dan Lanning will become an analyst one day for Clemson after all of this is crazy. But then I realized, hey, I was going to do the show during halftime and I just kind of lost track of time. So here I am in a late night. We'll call it the After Dark edition. If you're a fan of my radio show, it's the After Dark radio show over on the Roar. So this is the After Dark radio podcast edition of Locked On Clemson. And I have a few things that I want to talk about, continuing to get into portal discussion because, we really don't have much time left, but the focus seems to be shifting a little bit with Clemson and what direction they're trying to do. And some fans are pretty frustrated. Some fans are still pretty excited. Some in the message boards are telling me that Clemson is doing well, but still not well enough. So, it's a mixed bag still out there, even though Clemson is performing much better. As some of the viewers have reminded me, this is what every other team has been doing for years. What I am so giddy about with Dabo in 2026 is really the norm. And it's not something that, we should just be kind of like giving Dabo another 25-year extension over. And I can kind of get that. And one of the things that really is the hottest topic from today is the offensive elephant in the room. And everybody's yelling about it because the Gamecocks, yes, of all people, the South Carolina Gamecocks land Emmanuel Poku, and Clemson didn't. And in response to that, the Clemson message boards have just absolutely lost their minds. And I get it because this was a piece of what we're wanting for Clemson. We do believe that Clemson needs to improve their offensive line. What they had last season was not appropriate for a team that's trying to get to the playoffs. And on both sides of the line of scrimmage, really. So far in the transfer portal, what we've seen is just an overwhelming amount of defensive players, 8 total defensive players, seemingly stacking the defense and ignoring the offensive side of the ball. So it begs the question from everybody, why is Dabo getting all the praise for using the portal when he is literally ignoring half of the side of the team, half of the team, the offense? And to be honest with you, the frustration and the fear in that is pretty real because, as much as you maybe like Matt Luke, what he fielded this season was terrible. It didn't get better until later on in the season when he started using freshmen in Jacobs and getting rid of some of those guys that they had picked to start the season. So all that stuff in the offseason, they started with a starting 5 that was not very good. And so the fear is very real. And, I've always been one of those hosts that I don't try to dismiss anything that the viewers say. A lot of times, you'll hear people say, well, I don't really think it's this way, or things will never change. So I really don't care. And I don't really believe that, because it really does. I want to be that guy who is the pulse of the fan base. I want to be a guy who is acknowledging the feeling amongst. And sometimes I acknowledge my own feelings that may not be in line with the greater fan base, but I am a nervous fan in myself, in my own way. So, but we do need to slow down and take a look at, this one situation. Is it indicative of the entire situation? Or should we separate emotion and try to figure out some sort of strategy going forward? Now, South Carolina and the Gamecocks seem to figure out that they needed to go all in on offensive line. They're probably spending a ton of money there. They've run off half of the guys on their team from offensive line. They got rid of their coach, and they're starting from scratch over there. Clemson's not really starting from scratch at all in that aspect. So they're not in the same type of apples to apples position. Clemson's offensive line is really not the fact that they don't have enough, Is the talent there? Some would argue that they do have some guys that are talented that need to get opportunities, that need to get more development, that need to get one more year under their belt, or one more offseason under their belt before they can get more opportunities. Is the development, is Matt Luke's guys getting in there the fix? Is that the fix to the problems they had? Getting rid of the non-Matt Luke guys and getting in the guys that are Matt Luke guys? Maybe it's just as simple as that. Maybe it's not just getting some massively awesome offensive lineman from the portal that's expensive to fix things. Maybe it's just the guys you already have that Matt Luke has brought in and recruited. They need to get their opportunities, and 2026 seems to be a good chance for that to be the case. So it might be just that if we take emotion out of it, that Clemson feels as if there is a different problem to solve. And the part that does sting, though, is that this player was on Clemson's radar and was being recruited by Clemson. And yes, the Gamecocks landed him over Clemson. And so in a bubble, in a vacuum, in a single situation, us versus them, that does sting. It doesn't feel very good. But portal recruiting isn't all about who, visits or offers first. A lot of times it's about money and leverage and role that they can play and timeline available. South Carolina is selling, in my opinion, something like immediate necessity, while Clemson is selling, still from our perspective of Dabo, fit and patience over immediate playing time and necessity. And those are two different pitches, and some players are going to like that, but some players are not. And, in a lot of ways that may hurt Dabo overall in the portal. And we know that. We already know that. Clemson is not just going to take anybody just because to say they have taken someone. The staff, for better or worse, they want to believe in the 7 guys they have that can rotate. And if they believe in those guys through and through, then they'll walk away. Even if it looks bad to the optics on social media with us and arguing with Gamecock fans on X, right? Obviously, it's frustrating. Obviously, it invites criticism. It invites USC Junior to make fun of you or pretend like they have an upper hand on you. But let's look at the pattern of what Clemson is doing right now. Obviously, we have to accept the fact that the defense is the priority and where the most bleeding was happening and where the lack of talent was at the most. Speed, depth, length, everything, violence, everything was missing. And so Clemson strategically is spending the most time, spending the most effort, spending the most money there. Offensively, they are choosing to hold their hand and bet on continuity, not just being complacent. I would not say you should just look around and say they're just being complacent. But is it a gamble? Oh, it definitely is a gamble. That's for sure. But can they fix everything all at once? Well, unfortunately, where Dabo has got them, in a lot of ways, I don't believe that they should or they can fix everything all at once. But they do have a plan. It is a strategy, and we will see. You know, this is new water for Dabo Swinney and his staff and what he's allowed to do in the past. All right, hey, coming up, segment number 2, we'll continue to talk about that strategy and focus here on Locked on Clemson. Let's talk about something most men don't bring up, but absolutely should. Stress from work, money, life. It doesn't just switch off at night. And when it shows up at the worst possible times, Rugiet Ready is designed to help you take back control. Rugiet Ready is a next generation prescription treatment created to support both brain and body. And so you can feel present and confident and ready when the moment matters the most. Most men are ready in about 15 minutes on average, so you can stay present, confident, and in control when the moment is right for you. If you've been thinking about taking the next step, well, now's the time. Head over to rugiet.com/locked on. That's rugiet.com/locked on college to get 15% off your order for a limited time. Rugiet Ready. Feel present, feel confident, feel ready. Thank you for making Locked On Clemson your first listen of the day. Thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. And if you haven't already, check out our new Every Dayer Club. You can get ad-free episodes of Locked On Clemson. You get access to the exclusive Discord server for members only. So go check it out, lockedonclemson.supercast.com, or tap the link in the show notes to learn more about it. All right, segment number 2 here for Locked on Clemson. We're going to continue the discussion about Clemson in the portal being loud this week, but also being precise in what they're looking for. Because the most important things that fans need to see after this weekend is that Clemson, because of their success, can move a little bit more towards cleaning things up, really taking a second look or a final look at what they need to close out this portal window, to get the right guys on the team to fill out those last couple of holes that they have. Instead of just scrambling, they're now trying to figure out where are they needing the most help. Originally, when we started everything, it was all about, hey, Clemson is in panic mode, which they weren't. We were, but they weren't. But they needed to fix just about everything from top to bottom. That's not how they decided to choose how to fix it. They decided to be more precise and controlled on the offensive side of the ball, not ignoring it, but just continuing with what they have on the offense, while on defense, filling all those holes that they had, because they had a lot and they were very thin in a lot of spots, and missing a lot of physicality and a lot of premium positions on the defensive side of the ball, where you could look at offense and say, they didn't have that same problem. And the work that they needed to be done has largely been done because of what they were able to do early on in the transfer portal. 8 additions, all 8 on defense, all in positions of critical need. And now they're able to figure out, hey, what are they going to do to kind of close out this portal season, if you will, or window? It's not a panic mode. It's not like everything's going to fall apart if they don't get this guy or that guy. Clemson can still be very selective. They can still, do what the best programs do out there, and establish momentum in certain areas. Clemson continues to look for guys who are going to improve their offensive line and defensive line. I still think that is still something that matters to them. They're looking at a junior college defensive tackle currently, and you know, it's not so much about where he came from, but just how successful he was. Um, and so it goes back to the fact that it's really nice to see where Dabo Swinney is so far in the transfer portal and how serious he has taken it, because he had no other choice really. But he did what he needed to do, and he's taking it serious. Um, and he's looking at a guy from junior college, uh, Berberija. I think that's how you say it. I might be butchering the name, but 12 sacks as a defensive tackle and defensive end, and and clearly somebody who they're looking to possibly come in and really help this team move forward. I've kind of said it, and I know it wasn't the popular thing on social media, but I kind of said that if you build a strong defense with guys who work well together, you really can be fine with Christopher Vezina. I'm not saying that Christopher Vezina is good enough to win a national championship, but Christopher Vezina is a functional quarterback that, if you're really good around him, can win you 9 or 10 games. And honestly, 9 or 10 games is what you need to get out of being in that narrative of football has passed Dabo Swinney by. You start winning 9, 10 games again, going to the ACC championship game, even losing it. Even if you do, Clemson is still in the point where if they rebound from this bad season built around a strong defense, then maybe 2027, 2026 offseason can be where they go full on for quarterback. But right now they're holding tight to Christopher Vezina and really going hard on building that defense to an elite level. And they've got a couple of other guys they're looking at as well. I think a guy from Pittsburgh that's been announced on the radio. A few other guys that I think are in the mix. You don't know every single person, of course, but the difference between desperation and strategy. I don't feel like any of this has been desperation at all, and that's been a big shock to me. I was fully prepared for Dabo to kind of fumble around with this and not really know what to do and not be prepared, because he just never had used it. But now that they really are going after it, he seems to be in control and have a good feel of how things are working. So Clemson isn't just chasing their tail or scrambling to the very end. They're trying to work out deals that are going to be at the best benefit for the team overall, and get them back to being a elite program. 7-5, 7-6 is not elite. It's not what we accept from Clemson at all, ever. And so Dabo knows that he's got to get back to winning 9 or 10 games. And I would agree. If you're going to fight me in the comments, Christopher Vezina doesn't give me a lot of confidence to win a national championship. Can Christopher Vezina get into the playoffs if you build the team around him really well? Yeah, I believe that. So they're working what they can do. They're focusing on their strategy, and they're not deviating from it. You don't want to be halfway through and swaying back and forth. And that's the very different feel than what we've been used to in the past couple of years. Because what we've been used to is I had nothing to talk about because Clemson wasn't getting involved in this market at all. Speaking of getting involved, I think there's one player that we should take a look back at that they've landed this week that is a big deal, and going forward could shift Clemson in a positive way for 2026. Hey, the college football playoffs are here. FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action every single day with the playoffs. So right now, every college football playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost waiting for them in the app. Here's what I love about it. You get to use the profit boost on bets you already feel good about. You can ride with the favorite, or you can take a shot on the underdog. Even then, you can apply profit boost and go after even bigger winnings. And when you win, FanDuel pays out instantly, as you know they do, which is perfect for playoff football. FanDuel is the best place to get in on the action and be a part of it all playoff long. Visit fanduel.com to get your college football playoff profit boosts every game day. All right, segment number 3 here. Thank you again for being a part of Locked on Clemson. You can always follow me on X at the Morgan T Show and in between episodes. And you can stick around Monday through Friday here on Locked on Clemson, where I put out one show every weekday. And you can hit the follow or subscribe. I think about 67% of you are not yet subscribed. So if you're still around and you haven't subscribed, go ahead and do that, because it really helped me out as well. Now, one comment or commitment that really defines the week to me is London Merritt. This isn't just another name on the list. To me, it's a full circle evaluation win. I mean, Clemson recruited Merritt hard out of high school. They identified him early. They brought him into camp. They offered him, and then just things happened. Ohio State, IMG, Ohio State, Colorado. Instead of forcing the issue, Clemson let it go. And that kind of mattered in the long run, because when Merritt hit the portal, it wasn't a cold evaluation, someone they didn't know. It was a known quantity, returning to a known program, to a known staff, to a known system. And, Merritt himself said that he felt like Clemson was the right fit for him. But he realized that he had to be somewhere else to understand what it really meant to him, the system, the tradition, the way defensive linemen are developed at Clemson. It really, when he came out and he talked to the public about it, it really wasn't about money. It wasn't about even NIL or anything like that. It was really just about fit, culture, tradition, and being developed. Now, productively, he played all 12 games last season, 8 tackles for loss, second most tackles for loss by a freshman in the Big 12 at Colorado. He could be much more than depth fluff. He could be a legitimate disruptor at the defensive end position. And that's where the key point is. Merritt is Clemson's first defensive intake in the portal, but we're hearing that it may not be their last. So he is a foundational piece, but not the only piece. And they're expected to go after one more edge, but still, again, at this point, going to be extremely selective. So it may not be as quick and hard hitting as we saw at the beginning of this week or over the weekend. But there are players out there that Clemson has on their radar. One guy from Tennessee, 4-star guy, SEC guy, rotational guy, but looking for a new opportunity. And so Clemson is figuring out if that is a good fit for them. And he is also filling out Clemson as well. It's not really about like just picking whoever's available. A lot of fans do that, and that's just not a good strategy for any team, not just Clemson. You can't just pick any old name that's on the list. It can't just go to on3.com transfer portal rankings and just pick the top 5 guys and say, well, Clemson needs to go after these guys. There has to be relationships built. There has to be a need there in some way outside of just money. And there has to be a fit in with the culture and what the staff is trying to do, what Dabo's trying to develop and build and continue to build and sustain at this point. Avoiding wasting your time with a transfer portal player, wasting your money with a transfer portal player is also just as key as replacing and filling in gaps. And when you zoom out, the defensive line or the defensive rebuild in general has been very calculated and well done. The defensive interior at this point, you could call it reinforced. The edge position is one player away from being reinforced, but basically halfway there. The linebacker position is now upgraded, or really from the very beginning when they landed their linebacker from the portal. And then the secondary is retooled with a little bit more speed and physicality. This is not just random picking from the transfer portal list or getting the next 3 or 4 star guy. But it is rebuilding the team from top to bottom on the defensive side of the ball while being very calculated with what they're going to do on the offense. And right now, it's just holding true to who they have. And so overall, I like what Clemson is doing. I do agree that some of the fans out there may say, well, we're just bragging about Dabo and drooling over everything he's doing but he's just really doing the norm and what's expected. And I understand that, and I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm just going to take the wins that we get right now because this is what we're experiencing right now. While it may be the norm, is way better than anything we've experienced in the Dabo Swinney portal era. It does feel like that Dabo is willing to continue to adapt and adjust to win football games. In public, he's going to talk about developing young men, and that's his thing. And he does actually truly believe in that. But I think we also all know, and even Dabo knows, that he has to win games. Even before Dabo Swinney, 7 games was unacceptable. You can't constantly do that. Shoot, even just getting to 9 games before Dabo was unacceptable. Clemson fans want elite. They want ACC championship games on the regular. They want playoff opportunities on the regular. And Dabo has enabled that. But that was always kind of a standard from the beginning. That was why Clemson got rid of coaches who could win 9 games. Because it's not just about having a winning record. Clemson wants and has a high standard. Their fan base wants wins. They want postseason opportunities outside of just the Cheez-It Bowl or the Pop-Tart Bowl or the Duke Mayo Bowl, you know, or the Pinstripe Bowl. Clemson fans have an expectation, and honestly, it's higher than ever because of what Dabo has built. So the staff has to continue doing what they can do to get back to the level that they were at a few years ago. All right. Hey, that's it for the Friday edition of the show. Thanks for tuning in. Tune in next week as we continue the talk and discussions about all things hot with Clemson football, basketball, and everything in between. Check me out on social media on X at The Morgan T Show. Follow and subscribe to the podcast or on YouTube at Locked On Clemson. If you never miss an episode, well, let me tell you, the Everydayer Club is still built for you. Locked On Clemson, ad-free, members-only Discord access. Head over to lockedonclemson.supercast.com to join the club. And for those of you watching on video, you're going to go to the National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. That's 24/7. And if you're listening on audio, take a moment and go listen, make your second listen, Locked On College Football. Hope you have a good weekend, and we'll see you Monday, and we'll see you, Tiger fans, at the top of the hill.